you have a civilized lifestyle where we are getting so good at walking the line, world over here, my faith over here, and I'm not upsetting the world, not getting in their face. In fact, I'm pretty tame. And that's what Jesus wants, right? What I find is that the most civilized and domesticated areas, that's where people flock to. Why? It's safe. It's civilized. It's domesticated. Here's the thing, civilized and domesticated looks good on the surface. I think of the most domesticated thing in my life that I know of, and that is my dog, Elle. She will never bite you. I know she will never bite you. I've tried to get her to bite me. She's too tame. Now, on the outside looking in, what more could you ask for? But if someone ever broke into our house, that dog is going to do nothing for me. And I wonder that if we as Christians have worked on being so civilized and tame that we don't have the bite or the ability to do the same. Remember, the reason why people flock to these environments is to feel safe. And as a church, me included at times, guilty. We let people know that if they are truly in the center of God's will, then they are safe. And that there is comfort. And that is it. No risk. Let me present to you a person named John the Baptist. Wandering in the desert, eating locusts, wearing goat hair. If being in the center of God's will is safe, then why do we find ourselves in Matthew chapter 11, 2-6, with John the Baptist about to have his head cut off, and he's out here preparing the way, proclaiming who Jesus is boldly. He's so bold in the things of Jesus that he has called out the king to the point that he's about to have his head cut off and served on a platter. In Matthew chapter 11, 2-6, he says, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?" He's saying, where's my Superman right now? And Jesus answers back, he said, yeah, tell him the blind see, the lame walk, the poor have good news. But there's more. He said, blessed are those who don't fall away because of me. Blessed are those who don't see that they're healthy and that they're healthy and I'm sick. Blessed are those who see that God has a purpose for us, and sometimes his will for us involves things that aren't comfort. The thing about John's story is if he wasn't a martyr, that would have took away from the glory of God. If it's all about comfort, if it's all about just being civilized and finding your comfort, then explain Corrie ten Boom and her sister Betsy. They hid Jews during the time of Nazi reign, and they got caught and they ended up in a concentration camp themselves. The promise of safety in the center of God's will was completely flushed out when they were in that concentration camp. And though Corrie lived to tell the story, her sister Betsy, who was the leader of encouragement in those camps, she was the one who died. They still were in the center of God's will. We perverted this belief that instead of confidence to live as we should, regardless of outcome or consequence, we have used this idea of comfort in the center of God's will as a justification to choose the path of least resistance, least difficulty, and least sacrifice. I am guilty of this, okay? I'm guilty. God has a will for every single one of us, okay? And we have to come to the conclusion, change your mind for a moment and understand that it is best to be wherever God wants you to be. You're like, okay, I'm with you. Are you? Is your goal to be wherever God wants you to be? Or do you see it that your goal is that wherever you want to be is where God wants you to be? We sing songs like, I know who goes before me. If you're following him, but if you're a born-again Christian or a leader in your home, and the only thing you have in common is that you constantly can say, he leaves the 99, well, that's because you're going to where you see that you should be and asking God to meet you there. God's will for us is less about comfort. If he has a will for us and a plan for us, it's more about our contribution. Not if we're living a long, blessed life. The fact is, God would never choose your safety at the cost of your significance.